Hey friend, welcome to Grounded, the vestibular podcast. I'm Dr. Madison Oak, aka the Vertigo Doctor. I am the vestibular physical therapist who is here to help you with all things dizziness, imbalance, and vertigo. In this podcast, we explore the fascinating world of vestibular disorders. Come with me as we dive headfirst into a journey to discover the mysteries of the brain, the inner ear, and the balance mechanisms that keep us grounded. Whether you've been managing dizziness for one day or 25 years, we're going to get real about what it takes to manage dizziness, handle the anxiety cycle, and thrive, not just survive, with your vestibular disorder. First, I want to remind you that this is never medical advice. Remember, this podcast is for informational purposes only and may not be the best fit for you and your personal situation. It shall not be construed as medical advice. The information and education provided here is not intended or implied to supplement or replace professional medical treatment, advice, and/or diagnosis. Always check with your own physician, medical professionals, and healthcare team before trying or implementing any information found here. Meet me in your coziest chair while we navigate the highs and lows, the twists and turns of the vestibular universe. Welcome to Grounded. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Today, I want to tell you about our win first, and then we are going to dive into talking about what the heck is triple PD. Today's win is from Jane. Jane says, sharing a win. I know it's not Saturday, but it's too good to wait. When I joined Vestibular Group Fit back in January, I joined because I wanted to be at my best for both my daughter's weddings this summer. First was a week-long camp/family get-together culminating in the wedding on Saturday. I managed numerous large number camp meals, walking across the field, provided an English afternoon tea for the crowd, hiked up a steep trail, on the beach, on the lake, etc. On Saturday, we had a beautiful outdoor ceremony and a reception under an open walled tent. I handled the hot weather, gave a speech, and I danced. 3 dances on my feet and then pulled a chair up to the dance area and adapted for some more. I am so happy. The day after my husband and I drove out to the west coast of the island and tent camped on the beach. Haven't done that in years. Early morning in the tent, I had horrible vertigo, but got through it. And after a couple hours, I managed to walk into the open, windy beach, then 11 hours of passenger travels, mostly on gravel, logging ways back home. We are both pretty tired, but oh so thrilled. Thank you, Vestibular Group Fit. I can feel the progress. I absolutely love this. It shows the ups, the downs, the persistence, and the possibilities of living with a vestibular disorder. When you live with a vestibular disorder, it feels like your world becomes really tiny. Like everything is going to be impossible. Like you can never do anything again, celebrate with your family, go to a wedding, etc. However, none of that is true. Those are all like lies that we spin up in our head. And part of joining Vestibular Group Fit is starting to understand that, hey, these things are possible again, and I need the tools. So even on the setback of I had an attack the day after she did something absolutely huge, she's like, oh, I knew what to do. I managed my attack. It didn't even ruin the rest of my day. And a few hours later, I went on a really long walk on the beach in the wind and then did 11 hours of travel on gravel roads. So even on the most difficult of days, you can still get through them and find the potential in things. And joining Vestibular Group Fit about 6.5-ish months ago for her was what got her to this progress. The coaching, the support, the Q&A, the education, listening to these things. So congratulations, Jane. I am so incredibly thrilled for you, and I cannot wait to see what you do next. All right, let's get into the episode. Today on the episode, we are talking about triple PD, aka persistent postural perceptual dizziness. Persistent postural perceptual dizziness is a chronic form of dizziness that is very manageable. Now, everyone wants to know the answer to this question, which is there a cure? Cure implies that you will never, ever, ever experience this symptom ever again. And since we don't have the capacity to never, ever, ever experience dizziness again, we want to think of this as something that is manageable, is treatable, but could potentially in the future, if you have an increase, let's say, in stress, or you don't sleep well for a week, or you stop eating well, or you get super dehydrated, or something else flares up, that triple PD can come back. And that's okay too, because you have the tools at that point once it has gone away. You will have the tools to make it go away again. So hopefully that makes sense. But if it doesn't, we're going to explain more into that and how it's kind of a stress barometer. First of all, what is it? Let's go through the diagnostic criteria. So the basics of it is that triple PD, which is what we're going to call it, or 3PD for the rest of this, because persistent postural perceptual dizziness is way too hard to say, is a chronic form of dizziness that lasts greater than 90 days on most days. It's a secondary condition and it has very specific diagnostic criteria that have to be met. It is absolutely not a trash can diagnosis for people who are dizzy. A lot of people will tell me, oh, my doctor gave me the diagnosis of triple PD because they couldn't figure out what it is, and I'm still dizzy. That is not a reason to diagnose someone with triple PD. And that is something that actually makes me really, really frustrated a lot of the time because, again, it's not a trash can diagnosis. It's a very real, very legitimate diagnosis that exists because people have chronic dizziness. It used to be called chronic subjective dizziness and now has more specific criteria, aka triple PD. So it can and it should be treated. Let's go through the diagnostic criteria. You can find these online pretty much anywhere. They are the Barony diagnostic criteria. And this is criteria A. It goes A through E. So A is one or more symptoms of dizziness, unsteadiness, or non-spinning vertigo that are present on most days for 3 months or more. Symptoms last for prolonged hours to longer duration periods of time, but may wax and wane in severity. So that means that they last for a while. It's not going to be like the quick spin of the vestibular migraine, for example, but like this kind of like bobbing and swaying that lasts for a while and then it kind of goes away. And then maybe you get in a car and something irritates it and then it gets worse. Okay. That kind of means it waxes and it wanes. It comes and it goes, but it also can be chronic. Symptoms need not be present continuously throughout the entire day. So if you wake up in the morning and you're like, I'm feeling kind of okay, and then it gets worse in the afternoon after you've fatigued yourself or fatigued the system, or when other things happen during the day or something stressful happens, and then it gets worse, that can be possible as well. But present on most days for 3 months or more. B, persistent symptoms occur without specific provocation, but are exacerbated by 3 factors. So there isn't one specific or particular thing that makes it worse, but it is exacerbated by 3 specific things: upright posture, active or passive motion without regard to direction and position, and exposure to moving visual stimuli or complex visual patterns. So this means usually for people, it's worse when you're upright and moving around, and better when you are seated or lying down in bed. Now, the caveat to this is a lot of people say, like, if I lie down flat, I feel worse. That's pretty typical as well. So just because you lie down and you might feel worse does not mean you don't have triple PD. That's not what this is saying. This is just saying that typically they're exacerbated by these 3 things, but it's not specific. So that means that it could be other things that are provocative as well. Exposure to visual stimuli or complex visual patterns is a really big one. So this means you're in the grocery store and there's a lot of stuff going on that's irritating for your triple PD. Symptoms get worse. Maybe you are trying to do visual vertigo exercises. Maybe you're in the car and things passing by make you feel worse. Those types of visual stimulation can make things worse and make the triple PD feel worse in that moment. And then either active or passive motion. So active means you are walking, you are running, you are moving, and passive motion means you are in the car, you are on a train, something like that, where something else is moving you, but you are still moving. Okay, diagnostic criteria C. The disorder is precipitated by conditions that can cause vertigo, unsteadiness, dizziness, or problems with balance, including acute episodic, or chronic vestibular syndromes, other neurological or medical illnesses, or psychological distress. Okay, so this disorder is precipitated by another condition. I'm going to say it again. This disorder is precipitated by another condition. This disorder does not exist on its own. This criteria itself says it. So when someone says you have just triple PD, have a nice day, it's not true. You need to get to the cause of why you have triple PD. Other medical illnesses could be things like inflammatory conditions, for example, and we will be talking about that at the Vestibular Virtual Summit. I'm really excited kind of about those inflammatory conditions and what that can mean from an environmental perspective. But so let's say the disorder can be caused by conditions that cause vertigo, unsteadiness, dizziness, or problems with balance, including acute, episodic, or chronic vestibular syndromes. This means vestibular migraine. This means BPPV. This means vestibular neuritis, SCDS, acoustic neuroma. This means Meniere's disease. If you can name a vestibular disorder, it can trigger triple PD. The most basic way to talk about this is that it's the dizzy, anxious, dizzy cycle gone wrong. So you get dizzy, it automatically makes you feel anxious. That anxiety makes you feel dizzier, and this cycle continues to move through itself. Now, is it just dizzy, anxious, dizzy cycle? No, there are other components that we can kind of talk about a little bit today that are typically with like inflammatory components and stuff like that. Like, why does this happen in the first place? You could also go listen to both episodes that I did with Dr. Emily Kostalnik. The first one we did on the dizzy, anxious, dizzy cycle, and we did address some of this on triple PD. And the second one we did is about the cell danger response and inflammatory responses and mindset and how important it is to those things. So definitely go give those a listen if you haven't yet after you finish this episode. Now, the other things that can trigger triple PD would be neurological or medical illnesses or psychological distress. So I will say, as a person who only treats dizziness literally all day, every day, it's usually something like vestibular migraine that triggers it. That being said, I have seen people who have really acute, very intense things happen to them that triggers triple PD without a vestibular diagnosis. For example, I did not treat this patient, but I referred this patient who had reached out to me, who didn't live in a state I could treat in, to someone else, where he had his father pass away from a heart attack very abruptly. It was not expected, very abrupt, very stressful for him and his family. And then he got dizzy. That one specific thing triggered triple PD. Another one would be a person who I also know, who I also referred to someone else, did not treat this patient, but kind of heard about their case throughout from them and my colleague. Broke his leg. He got imbalance. So this actually triggered imbalance, which then triggered triple PD, this feeling of discomfort. So that is something to understand very specifically, is that anything can trigger it, but you want to know what triggered it for a lot of reasons, because if it's something that still needs to be treated, like BPPV, okay, did my BPPV go away and now I'm left with triple PD? Like, it's been treated, I did the Epley or a different canalith repositioning maneuver, that specific thing is gone. Now I actually have triple PD. Or is it something that needs chronic management, like vestibular migraine, for example, where vestibular migraine is something, again, that doesn't have a cure, but we can make feel a lot better with different things. And so that is something to consider as well. So the next part of diagnostic criteria is C. I know that was a lot on C already, but there's two more points within C. So when the precipitant is an acute or episodic condition, meaning vestibular neuritis or BPPV, let's say, symptoms settle into the pattern of criterion A, which we talked about already, and that as the precipitant resolves. But they may occur intermittently at first and then consolidate into a persistent course. So symptoms might kind of like be there, really wax and wane. Every few days you might feel worse, and then you feel better, and then you're like, this is weird. And then it consolidates into consistently being dizzy or having that symptom. Dizziness is an umbrella term that I'm just going to use loosely for vestibular symptoms of the kind of rocking, swaying, bobbing kind of a situation. But when the precipitant is so the precipitant being, let's say, vestibular migraine, is a chronic syndrome, symptoms may first develop slowly and worsen gradually. So if you have vestibular migraine, things might be slow at first and then slowly get worse over time, get more intense, get more frequent, those types of things. So hopefully that makes sense. Criterion D says symptoms cause significant distress or functional impairment. So it's really distressing for you. It's really difficult for you to manage. It's really difficult for you to manage the stress, the anxiety, things like that. It's causing distress in your life. Or functional impairment. It could also be both. Functional impairment, I can't drive my kids to school. I can't stand up and do the dishes. I can't take a shower, things like that. And then symptoms are not better accounted for by another disease or disorder. So what does this all mean? The short of it is it's a chronic condition present on more than 90 days straight, 90 days or more. So day 90 and 91 and over. Triple PD is a secondary condition, meaning you need to be diagnosed or undiagnosed as having a different vestibular, medical, or anxiety disorder. And very rarely do I see that someone just has an anxiety disorder with vestibular or with triple PD. Like that is the rarest of the things that I see. So if someone's like, you're just stressed out, you need to relax. Probably not. Like, let's get another opinion there. And then symptoms include non-spinning vertigo. Triple PD will never make the room spin. I'm going to say that again. Triple PD does not make the room spin. I know a lot of people with triple PD diagnoses who are actually dealing with both vestibular migraine and triple PD. And it's important to understand that because the room spinning from vestibular migraine, for example, needs to be treated as such. And you need to be treating this in these attacks specifically, because if you do not, vestibular migraine absolutely will get worse if it's not treated properly, which is why like long wait times for a neurologist is hard. Why like even if you are going to see your local neurologist at some point, I recommend like a telehealth one with a shorter wait list a lot of time, like Neura Health. You can use code Vertigo Doctor 15 spelled all the way out, but 15, that's not spelled. Vertigo Doctor spelled all the way out, and then 15, like just the number on the end. You can use that for a discount. I am affiliated with them, but I am affiliated with them because I love them and I made them give me an affiliate code after I referred so many people to them. So other symptoms you can get are swaying, feeling cloudy, fuzziness, fullness, heavy-headedness, tilting, or lightness in the head. I've heard it all, other things like that as well. It's important to know that, again, it's a chronic subjective form of dizziness. It's not going to show up on your VNG. It's not going to show up on your MRI. There is no testing for it. It is diagnosed based on those criteria that I just read to you. You can find them online. They're the Barony criteria, or Barony, however you say that. And again, it is really important to understand that it is treatable. You do not have to be dizzy every day for the rest of your life, but you do need a treatment plan that works for you. And it is unlikely that, from what I've seen in clinic at least, and again, I do see like the dizziest of the dizzy people in my clinic, so I am biased towards that. But typically, just shaking your head all around and doing an SSRI or something like that is not going to get you where you want to go. So it does appear that personality types are important to consider. This is from a Probst article in 2017. When determining who does and does not get triple PD, people who are more highly strung, nervous, and generally anxious are typically more likely to develop triple PD, according to that article. This is typical because if you are a person who's like, I am dizzy and I'm thinking about it, and is this going to make me dizzy? Is that going to make me dizzy? What's going to make me dizzy? Oh my God, am I going to get dizzy? Over and over and over again, they say the grass is greener where you water it, right? So it's really important to understand that the more you think about this, the worse that things are going to get. Now, again, this is not your fault. This is something that's really difficult to manage, but it is manageable. So you do kind of want to think about the things in this that are going to be considered for you in particular. So again, All you want to know is that if you are more highly strung or more highly anxious, that typically if you have a lot of like medical, like health anxiety, that kind of a thing, you are more likely to get triple PD, but that's okay because there's lots we can do about it. And we will talk about treatment. It also has been found in some research, this one from Chiarella in 2016. Initial vertigo severity is linked to anxiety levels and possible development of triple PD as well. So who's really to say exactly what's going to trigger it, but it is pretty common in the vestibular world. Dizziness and anxiety are processed in the brain in a lot of the same places. One particular place is the parabrachial nucleus. So it's really common for dizziness to cause anxiety and for anxiety to therefore trigger that dizziness to get worse. So it's involved in avoidance and conditioned fear as well. And the more we condition that fear about something, the more we avoid that thing, the worse it's going to get, which I know is so frustrating because like I'm not trying to avoid this thing, it's making me dizzier. But the way that your brain works is this. If something has made you dizzy before, let's say you went to the grocery store and the grocery store, you got dizzy in there. The next time you pull up to the grocery store, your brain might go, oh no, we can't go in there. That made us dizzy last time. And as a warning signal, will preemptively this time make you dizzier. That is really frustrating and really difficult. And again, not your fault. So we start to perpetuate this cycle because then when you pull up to the grocery store and you get dizzier just from by like being out front or like hardly going inside, then you're like, oh my God, this is the worst. Now I have to be afraid of the grocery store. Now this is driving more fear. And now I'm going to avoid it, right? I'm going to start avoiding walking independently sometimes. I'm going to avoid going to new scary places, whatever that looks like for you. And avoiding those things and avoiding movement teaches your brain, oh, we should continue to avoid these things. We should continue to avoid these things over and over and over again. Therefore, staying in your house more, avoiding hanging out with family and friends, kind of isolating yourself. All of these things are patterns that I see in a lot, if not most, of my triple PD patients. And this ends up perpetuating the cycle. And this is really hard. And I have had patients who have had this for 25, 30 years, haven't left the house, and are driving to town again. So you do want to know, again, that this does get better, but it takes very, very, very intentional practice. So what is not triple PD? If you are getting progressive symptoms, if the onset is kind of like random, you're like, that's weird. If you're falling a lot or having like gait disturbances, like an ataxic gait, like your doctor tells you, oh, you have an ataxic gait, that's not triple PD. It's a perceptual disorder. And constant symptoms regardless of provocation. So if you have triple PD and you feel the same if you're in the car or playing video games or sitting on the couch quietly, that's typically related to something else. So these symptoms are kind of mechanical. Are there cures? Now, the word cure is something that is really controversial, but I want you to stick with me here. I know I talked about this at the beginning, so if you're still here, thank you. Not having a cure doesn't mean you're going to be dizzy forever. Not having a cure means you can use this as a stress barometer. So, stress barometer means people who feel better from dizziness, from triple PD specifically, they use triple PD symptoms, so that dizziness, that discomfort, as a barometer for something in their life. And I like to use the word stress. It could be sleep, it could be nutrition, it could be all of the things. This should feel empowering to you because this means your body is talking to you, saying, hey, we need help. We need something to change. For example, I use my barometer of have I worked out enough? Am I eating right? Am I taking care of myself for this shoulder pain that I have from tearing a labrum a couple of years ago? I don't panic that my shoulder is in pain. Like, yeah, it's annoying because like sometimes I can't sleep and it messes with other parts of my life and whatever. But I do know this means, hey, I need to stop stressing out enough. I need to take care. I need to take care of myself better. I probably need to be eating more protein. I need to focus on my collagen intake. I need to be drinking more water. I need to lubricate this joint. I need to go back to my strength training routine and my rehab routine that I'm usually really good about, but for whatever reason lately, I haven't been so good about. This is the same exact thing as triple PD. So if you are a person who has triple PD and you're like, I get to a place of remission where things are not so bad or things are not so intense, and then it comes back and you're like, oh my God, a lot of people panic at that point. No, you go back to the wheel of management. The wheel of management is something we talk a lot about in vestibular group fit, is in one of the very first videos that you will ever watch. And it is basically this concept of this wheel of 8 things that you could do better. Sometimes it's mindset, sometimes it's sleep, sometimes it's nutrition, sometimes it's education, sometimes it's support, sometimes it's community. It's all of these different things that sometimes we let the ball drop, right? And that's okay. It's okay to let the ball drop. Sometimes getting all these things done is difficult. I will say that, like, sleeping enough, drinking enough water, eating enough food, all my friends send me every single meme on the internet that says, like, you need to be eating 30 grams of protein and drinking enough water, blah, 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 blah. That is essential to being a human being. Like, I am done sugarcoating this. Like, it is essential and you need to be doing it. And frankly, we need to stop making excuses about it. I know maybe that sounds blunt and mean. You need to be doing these things because they will make you feel better. Taking out the ultra processed food, right? We're done eating junk food and stuff like that. Once in a while is okay. But if most of your diet, for example, doesn't grow from the earth, you need to make some changes. It shouldn't be things that come in like boxes that have been processed by man-made food. The foods that you should be eating should be mostly things that have grown. Animals grow, plants grow, right? Fruit grows. Most of these things, not everything. 80-20 rule, be realistic, be reasonable. And if most of your diet, you look in your pantry and it's mostly processed foods, just start by adding more non-processed foods in, right? We're all on a journey of health. We're all at a different phase. And it's okay if you're not at the same phase as me. It's okay if you're ahead of me, right? I am by no means perfect. Gummy candy is one of my favorite things on this planet. Okay, full stop. It is. But I do what I can by adding things like vegetables in, things like beef jerky in. If I'm just like really having a hankering for them, I don't eat them alone. None of us are perfect. So how do we actually treat triple PD? Now I'm off my high horse diatribe, I swear. We're all at a different phase. It's difficult. You can get there. Making small changes is really important. So what are we going to do about it? The first thing we want to do about it is find what's triggering the triple PD. What's triggering the triple PD, again, goes back to that diagnostic criterion, letter C. And that letter is that this is triggered by something else. So again, we want to know, is this triggered by vestibular migraine? Is this triggered by BPPV? Is this triggered by vestibular neuritis? Remember, there's always something that has triggered it. If it's BPPV and it's been treated and it's definitely not vestibular migraine and it's just BPPV and you're sure about that, I would always get a headache specialist if it keeps coming and going. But find that and treat the condition. So sometimes we need to habituate our brain to a new normal if you had neuritis. Sometimes we need to focus on getting migraine attack days down. Sometimes we need to focus on a different medical condition, right, that could be happening. Because there are lots of things that can trigger triple PD. We need to take all the things into consideration. And then another thing that I would take in consideration is going to be inflammation and inflammatory loads. And this is something that we're going to be talking about at the Vestibular Virtual Summit. I do want to tell you about this. It is like something that's coming up. The pre-sale starts on August 5th. The tickets for just the live weekend will be $49, and the tickets for the live weekend plus a replay are going to be $99. And this is the cheapest that they're going to be. So definitely get them starting on August 5th through the 18th. We are going to be talking about mold, MCAS, histamine issues, chemical sensitivities, Lyme disease, functional nutrition, genetics and epigenetics, how your detox pathways work, all of these things. because these things absolutely, unquestionably are related to your vestibular disorder. There's a reason more and more people are getting dizzier and dizzier, right? There are a reason that the American population itself is getting sicker and sicker. So we want to talk to you about these things. It is really important to understand. We have some amazing, phenomenal speakers coming. It is called the Vestibular Virtual Summit. If you are not yet on the wait list, I will link it in the show notes. Get on that wait list. We will send you emails when the pre-sale goes. Get the most affordable option. Please join us. We are really, really, really excited. Okay, so the next thing after you kind of figure out what that is, dealing with inflammation, maybe I should do another episode on kind of dealing with inflammation, like the short of it before the summit, we shall see. And maybe we should do also an episode on, products to change, because those absolutely are problematic. The first thing to do is just change your deodorant, and the second thing to do is take out anything in at your house with a fragrance, truly, unless it's like a pure essential oil like the ones from Ruel, which are safe. Take it out. Febreze, take it out. Glade, take it out. Dawn dish soap, take it out. Cascade, take it out. Tide washing machine stuff, take it out. Scented trash bags, absolutely not. Scented tampons and bathroom supplies, definitely not. So there are things that you can replace these things with that are just as effective, much, much safer, and are typically the same price. So maybe we'll do an episode on that. Maybe you let me know in the show notes or send me a DM at the Vertigo Doctor if you think you want an episode on that. Anyway, the first thing to do besides that is going to be changing your mindset. And this is one of the biggest things that we do in Vestibular Group Fit, which is my comprehensive healing program for your vestibular disorder. It works incredibly well. We have over 900 graduates who are thriving. So mindset is the first thing. Mindset is changing the way you look at your symptoms. Mindset is figuring out, how do I love my body no matter what? How do I respect what it's going through? How do I listen to my body when I need to? How do I change the way that I feel about myself, accept myself wholly, have hope and this knowing inner sense that my body can and will change? What are those things? And that can be really hard. We have a lot of stuff on critical thinking, on changing your mindset, on meditating, on guided meditations, on neural circuit dizziness, which is technically a made up word, but people like to use it. So we talk about that too. Mindset is absolutely essential. And when you change your mindset, everything else becomes easier, because then you are no longer beholden to the way that dizziness makes you feel. Sure, sometimes you need to spend a day in bed. Sometimes you don't feel good. That is 100% absolutely positively true. But if you change your mindset from, oh my God, I cannot believe I have to spend the day in bed, I'm a bad person, to, hey, today I'm not feeling so great. I'm going to spend the day low key, resting, rejuvenating, eating really good food, supporting my body, drinking enough water, and tomorrow's going to be a better day. That is a way better way of looking at it. And frankly, your body is going to be so much happier, and you will actually reduce your dizziness more quickly. So mindset is number one. Movement. This is also super, super, super important. Exercise and movement are non-negotiables. This is also something I've done sugarcoating. You absolutely have to move your body, and there is no way around it. There is no pill, there is no supplement, there is no nothing that is going to be better than moving your body every day. Start with walking. Start with standing and sitting from your couch 10 times. Moving your body is absolutely essential. Not only is it like good for our cardiovascular system, right? And builds muscle, it builds brain health, it reduces brain fog, it reduces the likelihood of neurodegenerative diseases. It reduces the amount of dizziness you will have when done correctly. And it also builds your confidence. It reduces anxiety and depression scores, which is a good thing. And therefore is going to reduce how dizzy you are and how your triple PD affects you. Remember, triple PD oftentimes increases the amount of avoidance activities you might do. So You might start to furniture walk or wall walk around your house, which means you're always like holding on to something for safety, even when you don't necessarily need to. I know some people, like in the middle of a vestibular migraine attack or a triple PD flare, you might need to do that, but probably not all the time. And if you're doing that all the time, if you're always bringing a cane with you, even when your balance feels relatively okay, even when your physical therapist has said like, hey, you're cleared to do walking by yourself, if you're still bringing that, that's still kind of intensifying the way that your body is thinking about your security and your ability to walk. And that's really frustrating, and that can be really annoying. So moving your body, really, really, really important, and reducing like the fear mongering activities. Of course, you're going to want to ask for support. That's another great thing about vestibular group fit, is the amount of support that you can get there. And then the education, where I'm going to educate you even further on triple PD and what the heck to do about it. Another piece of mindset, which I kind of like to put separately from mindset because the way you think about your symptoms is so important, is autonomic regulation. Autonomic dysregulation is an absolutely massive part of triple PD. This drives the cell danger response, which again is more about that in, because she does a better job of explaining it than I do, is in that episode by Emily Kostelnik, the most recent one. I believe it was out on June 11th, 2024. So go ahead and listen to that, just a couple weeks back. But autonomic dysregulation means your autonomic or automatic nervous system is not functioning correctly. Your autonomic nervous system does a lot of things in your body, and it's really important that we regulate that, right? It regulates our blood pressure, our heart rate, things of that nature. And we need that regulated. We need a good HRV score, which is heart rate variability. How elastic is that score? Can you bring, and it's individual to everyone, right? Like if I know someone who's is 200 and mine is definitely not 200, but when they're stressed out, it's like down to 160, where like if I'm stressed out, mine is down to like 60, and like the maximum it goes to is 90, which is not totally amazing, but it's also not like terrible. And that's something I'm working on, right? We're all work on in progress. Things that you can do for autonomic regulation are breathing exercises, relaxation, reducing the amount of stress in your life, cutting out toxins and toxic people. Toxic people in your life are not helpful. And I know I've done this a lot of times, and it is, my mom calls it my culling season, CULLING, like kicking people out of my life season, because they are not good for the amount of stress and pressure I put on myself, frankly. And getting rid of toxins and toxic people are going to be a part of this. The next is if you have visual vertigo, you need to be working with your physical therapist on this. We also have a whole module about it in vestibular group fit. But visual motion desensitization and oculomotor skills. So can you do saccades, which is jumping your eyes right, left, up, down quickly? Can you do tracking? So can you follow something across the screen, or can you follow your finger or your thumbnail? Can you watch a grocery store video? Can you be in the grocery store? And we go through specifically how to return to busy environments in vestibular group fit, of course, but that is something to consider. Next is motion intolerance. Can you tolerate motion, and how do we habituate that? If you cannot tolerate motion, like in the car or walking, we need to start low and go slow. Then sensory misweighting. We need to address this in physical therapy or in vestibular group fit as well. We have sensory weighting exercises. It's called the visual vestibular integration module. And basically, this is sensory balance retraining. So some stuff is eyes open, some stuff is eyes closed, some stuff is on a foam mat, some stuff is on firm, some stuff is movement, some stuff is still, and kind of reintegrating those irritating things back into your system so your visual, vestibular, and somatosensory or proprioceptive systems work together. We did just, I think on July 9th, we just had an episode about this. So it's something to know, maybe last week actually. Sometime in July, there was an episode about this. So about your three vestibular systems and how they work, or your three balance systems. You only have two vestibular systems, one on each side. Then fatigue. Everyone with a vestibular disorder, maybe not everyone, someone's going to be like, I don't have fatigue, but most people have fatigue. And it's because your brain is trying to rewire the way that it does things. Your brain has the easiest way to do something. Point A to point B, straight line. I have the neural reflex. I know the way I. When you get triple PD, your brain literally changes. We can see sensory misweighting, And we can see these different things. And people stop moving as much, they stop exercising as much, they might sleep a little bit worse because they feel uncomfortable when they lay down in bed at night. All of these things have to go back to fatigue and also weighting your sensory systems. So fitness and conditioning is actually really important. So start with walking. This is kind of going back to my theory, not my theory, my facts, that exercise is a non-negotiable. And we had an episode with Movement with Migraine, Emily from Movement with Migraine, Emily Cords on March 19th, 2024. And she talked about how to return to movement and the importance of movement with migraine. It is so important. It's also important with triple PD, and these things are connected. We stop moving, our vestibular system gets deconditioned, our body gets deconditioned. We stop moving even more because now it's even harder, and that cycle continues to go. In vestibular group fit, we have more resources than you could imagine on how to move again, how to scale exercise again for you properly. But basically, you need to build muscle because that actually reduces the amount of fatigue you have. Yes, we have classes specifically if you have POTS as well. We do. They're all supine or in a chair, and they kind of like go back and forth weekly. We have lots of chair exercises actually, but you need to be doing your fitness, doing your conditioning, and sleeping well to manage the fatigue, and also to help build more neuroplasticity, because that point A to point B that I was referencing before, because your brain has changed too. And so your brain is trying to find new ways to go around this system to either make you dizzy or avoid dizziness, hopefully avoid dizziness. And in those cases, you need to say, hey, I need my fitness, I need my fatigue, I need my fitness and conditioning and sleep to be improved in order to help my brain kind of rewire in that way. Next is high threat balance reactions. High threat balance reactions means if I push you over, you're going to catch yourself. And most people, the answer is yes. If you have triple PD, the answer might not be yes. So core stability, core stabilization, making sure you're doing your core exercises, as well as being efficient in catching yourself. So this is something you can work on in physical therapy specifically. You can do things with internal and external perturbations. What a bizarre word. That basically means like if someone can push you kind of around, back and forth. And then also it can mean if you are internally perturbating, so I'm like throwing and catching a ball or like bouncing something against the wall or something like that. And then poor balance confidence made into better balance confidence. So this kind of goes back to my thing about wall walking or bringing a cane or a walking stick unnecessarily. It's okay if you want to bring it in your purse. You have like a foldable one, that's totally fine. I just wouldn't use it all the time if you can. But systematic, successful exposures are really important. So slowly but surely, I always talk about the grocery store. I think it's the easiest one to talk about, but you could apply this to literally anything. Go to the grocery store and just stand out front. Then stand inside. For some reason, I picture my home grocery store, the Vons that I grew up with, in San Luis Obispo, California. If any of you live there, it's on Tank Farm Road, I think, where like Tank Farm becomes Orchid. Anyways, that is the Vons that I think of. And when you go in that Vons, the first thing is the flower section. So I would stand in the flower section for like 30 seconds and then leave. And then I would do a minute or two, and then I would leave. And then I'd do 5 minutes, and then I would leave over and over again. And then in that grocery store, if I walk through it, then there's the pharmacy section. So I'd like go one lap in the pharmacy section and then leave. And then a lap around the grocery store and then leave. And then go try and find a can of tomatoes and then leave. And then find a can of tomatoes and then corn and then steak and then leave. But don't buy any of it. Then I'm going to find that same can of tomatoes as before, and this time I'm going to purchase it and practice standing in line, right? All of these things systematically and making sure it's successful each time. Don't progress just because you're like, oh, I did this last time and it was really hard, so I'm going to do something harder. No. Do not prove to yourself that you can do the harder thing until you can do the easier thing. Go in a stepwise fashion. Just like if you are a person with a torn hamstring, you wouldn't try to run a marathon tomorrow. That would be wild. You do not want to do that. You want to say, okay, I need to take a step back from my running program, go to rehab, repair my hamstring, and then I'm going to start my couch to 5K, right? Not all the way to the marathon. You also need to be educated in triple PD management. So that's all of the things that we've talked about today that you need. Another thing, of course, that you can do if you're like, I cannot regulate my nervous system, I am so anxious all the time, this is absolutely causing me panic, is get a medication to help. Medications create space. Medications can be phenomenal. Medications can absolutely change your life. And an SSRI or an SNRI or a tricyclic antidepressant are all options for you if you want to use those as options. They really can help calm down your nervous system, regulate things more easily, make you feel better overall. And that's absolutely an option. There's nothing wrong with that. What I do not recommend to treat triple PD is going to be something like a benzo. Those are ineffective in treating triple PD. They're excellent vestibular suppressants. Excellent. Some of the best, honestly. If you're looking when you're having an acute attack to just suppress the crap out of your vestibular system, if you have Meniere's disease and the room is spinning for 15 hours, maybe not 15, it should be 20 minutes to 12 hours. So like 10 hours, a vestibular suppressant is amazing. What a gift to be able to use that. But if you're using Klonopin or Xanax or something like that every single day, even at a really low dose, it inhibits the ability of your brain to change. It inhibits the ability of your brain to do neuroplasticity as well, to create brain-derived neurotrophic factor from exercising, from strength training, from walking in order to have brain change occur. This is really difficult. I highly recommend a different medication choice if you're going to use one. I also recommend, and this is not something I can speak to because I am not this kind of therapist, but a therapist who can/will help you with acceptance and commitment therapy. Someone was telling me the other day about an email she got from a potential patient of her saying, like, I'm emailing you, and the only things I'm going to try are CBT and SSRI and VRT. And I'm here to tell you that those three things are phenomenal, but it's usually not the whole picture, especially CBT, because CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy and is honestly a lot of the times the only words we know to describe therapy. Like that's the only word I knew to describe therapy for years. But there is acceptance and commitment therapy, there's talk therapy, there's all different kinds of therapies, and your therapist should be trained in all of them, or most of them, or many of them, in order to help you. Somatic experiencing can be phenomenal. EFT tapping can be amazing. All of these things together to help, again, regulate your nervous system, reduce the amount of toxins in your life, toxic people included, friends. All of those things can be helpful. But at the end of the day, you need to regulate your nervous system first. Medications might be necessary, therapy might be necessary, whatever it is. Okay. I love you all so much. If you have any questions about triple PD, if there's anything I didn't cover, please send me a DM, and I will try to do another episode on this. I think that was a relatively good start. I had some notes that I followed along with, but honestly, a lot of it was just me freestyling on triple PD. I know a lot of this was not sugar-coated. I am a very blunt person in real life. Like if you're making me mad or pissing me off, I will just tell you. That might not be my internet persona so much. Like I feel like I'm tend to be gentler online. This episode is the exception. Like exercise is non-negotiable. You have to change your mindset. You find what works for you. I'm not going to just tell you to like think your way out of this. Like that's crazy. But I do want you to find what works for you in terms of mindset. Eating clean foods is going to help. Reducing the amount of ultra processed things is going to help. Reducing the amount of toxins in your environment is going to help. I hope this has helped educating yourself on triple PD. It is treatable. It is manageable. I know many people who are not dizzy on a daily basis anymore because they have figured out what works for them. So I love you so much. This does get better. If you have questions, please send me a DM and I will see you next time.